Welcome into episode 505 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget, Scott, all of our listeners. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and time with your friends and family over the holiday. And there were some hockey games that took place. There was a Thanksgiving Eve game on the road against the Islanders for the Bruins, which was an impressive 3-1 win. Then there was the matinee after Thanksgiving, which is a bit of a stinker. We'll get into that and some of the circumstances heading into that game that were unforeseen. And they followed it up with a strong performance against the Red Wings. And it was a pretty good back and forth hockey game, two division rivals, a home and home that they're in the middle of right now. So that was a good win for the Bruins in a shootout. So, Bridget and Scott, I hope your holiday was nice. And what were some of your takeaways from just holiday festivities, Bruins hockey, college? What's on your mind right now?
What I think is that it feels like it's been a month since we recorded last week because it just feels like so much happened in between, and there's been big injuries, and there's been call-ups, and there's been call downs, or whatever you want to say. Like, there's been transactions both ways, and there's so much to talk about. And I feel like the Bruins season continues to just be a roller coaster, that we will try to get into everything that happened during the holiday break. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Thanksgiving flew by because I was immediately working again for Nesson on Black Friday. And I was just like, I woke up the next day and I was like, well, actually, I didn't even finish that night. I ate my turkey. I went back to my apartment and I did like 4 hours of notes for my broadcast the next day. And I was like, this was the shortest holiday ever. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
I did because it was like Bruins play Thanksgiving Eve. Then, all right, cool. We get Thanksgiving off, but then games Friday and Saturday. So, yeah, it didn't really feel like a long weekend for me, but that's okay. Because, like, the way I always look at it is the NHL remains the one winter sport that still takes Christmas off. Like, we actually get those 3 days around Christmas. Whereas NBA, there's always games, and the Celtics have had a bunch of those Christmas Day games in recent years since they've been good. Now even the NFL has Christmas Day games. So I'm like, you know what? If Thanksgiving doesn't quite feel like an extended break, I'll live with that because we still, knock on wood, we still get Christmas.
So, Bridget, would you mind kicking us off with your opening shift?
Of course. So goaltending has been a bright spot this season, and Swayman had another really great performance. Not last night. Sunday. What day is it? Saturday night.
See, this is what a holiday weekend does to you. You just forget what day it is.
It's like that time between Christmas and New Year's, which is really, to your point, Scott, about that being a break for people too. I mean, World Junior Hockey, that's the only thing that keeps me on schedule is World Junior Championships. Okay, the U.S. is playing Canada, whatever. That's.
And by the way, this year, and this is a plug that my boss at Hockey East will enjoy. The Spangler Cup is this year too, which is they're sending like basically a college all-star team of guys that have aged out of juniors to Switzerland to play in this tournament called the Spangler Cup, which apparently is 102 years old. And they've never sent a college, like it's all Americans. It's they've never sent like a college like all-star team kind of thing. They've sent like just Michigan, like just one team as it is, but they've never sent like a whole group of the best players. So should be interesting. It's happening pretty much the same time as World Juniors.
And it's fascinating because like in modern times they haven't been able to, because there's also like pro teams there, like those pro teams from Switzerland. So that was always a very blurry line of like college players can't play against that. But the whole NIL stuff has shifted that and like really relaxed some of those rules. So that's opened the door for them to put a team like this together, which should be fun. I know Bruins prospect Ryan Walsh from Cornell is on that team. I don't know if any other Bruins prospects as of now are going, but I know at least he is.
I know none of the Hockey East ones are, because they're still like Higgins is gonna play World Juniors. But anyway, my
is there a
opening shift. What day
Ghostbuster?
is it again? No,
Is there a Ghostbuster named Spangler or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
I can't.
You know what's weird? I was never really much of a Ghostbusters kid.
I just know that. Well, I know from
What happened, guys? We are all the way off the rail.
it just takes a minute to get going after a few days. It's like warming up your car in the winter. We gotta warm the car before we start driving. That's all it is right now.
Spangler. Yep.
Oh, there you go. All right, great.
Bridget,
We got
sorry.
down to the bottom of that. Anyway, goaltending has been good this season for the Bruins, Swayman in particular. And last game against Detroit, once again, he made a lot of really nice saves. He didn't face a lot of shots, especially in the first two periods, but the saves that he did have to make were really good, grade A saves. A lot of stuff happening right out in front of his net. Some of it because of turnovers and, miscommunications, which we can get into, but he's been there to bail them out in situations like that. His stats have gone up and up and up. And I'm sure, Scott, you have some advanced stats that you want to get to. But actually, my opening shift has to do with comments that Sturm made about Swayman after the game. Because it's just I think it's something that was talked about among, different radio shows and just a topic of conversation in general last year as one of the reasons why Swayman was maybe not 100% on top of his game and not playing the way that he had in the past. Was he taking on too much of the burden of trying to be a leader on the team? He was coming out and he was speaking and he was saying things that sounded different than he had sounded like in the past. He was shouldering more of the leadership responsibility because he felt like, okay, now I'm a guy who's been here, and maybe I can help take some of that role. I think he saw himself in that role as a leader. And I think it's just good insight that Sturm kind of pulled back the curtain on that whole conversation with one of the answers he gave after the game. He said, basically, we told Swayman, don't worry about trying to lead. Like, you're doing too much. You're putting too much pressure on yourself with trying to take on that role as well. Just be yourself. Just go back to, the same way that you mentally prepped for games and everything before, and the rest will take care of itself. So I know that it had been something we talked about. Does your goalie need to be a leader too, or can he just be your goalie and everybody builds confidence off when he's winning and he's playing well? He's kind of leading by example naturally. And I know, Scott, you had made comments some point last season about, like, when he's losing games and he's not playing well and he's coming out and talking a certain way about, like, being a leader, is the team even receptive of something like that? So I think it's another one of those things you could check off. Marco Sturm figured out the right messaging and figured out this was maybe a problem and tried to fix it.
Yeah, it's hard for a goalie to be a leader. Like, there's a reason that goalies are rarely ever even considered as captains. And part of it is, like, you're not on the bench during the game. So right away, you can just take that out of it. Like, whatever conversations are going on over the course of the game, guys pumping each other up or calling each other out or whatever needs to happen. It's like, you can't do that. You're just standing in your net. Like, maybe you go over during a TV break, but that's all. And yeah, and I do also just think there's something unique about the position where it is such a mental position, and we know all the cliches about, like, goalies are kind of weirdos anyways. And it's like, yeah, like they are in their own little world, and that's not a bad thing. Like, that's by design. That's what the position is. Yes, there's teamwork and, like, you have to work on, handoffs behind the net and communication on screens and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying you're just all by yourself all the time, but it is a pretty lonely position, and it just doesn't lend itself to, like, oh yeah, I'm going to step up and be the team leader that everyone, listens to and gives speeches in the room and talks on the bench, because you're not on the bench. Like, you're just not in those situations.
Yeah, it's a full-time job plus overtime between the years for a goaltender. To everything you were just talking about, Scott, it's such a mental game for goalies, and you just don't have the mental bandwidth to also manage the emotions and psychology of your teammates as a vocal leader in the room. But to Bridget's one of Bridget's later points, leading by example is always an option. And it seems like we talked about it last year. Less is more when it comes to Swayman. Just focus on stopping the puck and being that leader by example rather than a fortune cookie, right? So right now,
Oh, we like those though. Those
we
are, we need
do.
more quotes for,
But if the
we don't
quotes
have any material for our next segment. So.
if the quotes are coming after wins and he's playing great, then that's fine. But everything seems to be going really well right now with that relationship between the Bruins and Swayman, and his play has been nothing short of fantastic this year. And it's one of the major reasons why the Bruins are still, in this conversation of being a playoff team, along with their special teams, goaltending and special teams have been a big reason for their, we'll call it success. But I mean, they're kind of in the middle of the pack. But yeah, it's been a major relief, I think, for Bruins Nation, for the Bruins, for the player, that he has had the bounce back season that we were all hoping for, but weren't entirely sure that would happen, and it has. So that's great.
Yeah, I have another thought on Swayman that I want to get to at some point, circle back to. But this does dovetail nicely into my opening shift as well, because mine's about someone who has stepped up more as a leader this season, and that's Nikita Zadorov, who I got to spend Thanksgiving morning with. I mentioned on the last podcast that Zadorov was going to be the Bruin, doing their pie deliveries to a couple homeless shelters in Boston, St. Francis House and Pine Street Inn. Usually, in recent years, that's been Charlie McAvoy who's done that, but obviously he's still recovering from an injury, so needed someone to fill in. Zadorov did, and in a way that's kind of fitting because Zadorov has also worn an A since McAvoy went down with an injury. He's along with Hampus Lindholm, but I think at times even ahead of Lindholm right now, has stepped up as like the guy in the back end. And Marcus Sturm even called him that Saturday night after the game when I asked him about Zadorov. He said like he knows with McAvoy out, he has to be the guy. And he is. He's playing a career high in minutes, almost a minute and a half more than his previous career high, which was last year. Last year he played 20:37 per game. And if you remember, like we got to the end of the season and we are like, Zadorov actually played pretty well in the second half. And you get McAvoy and Lindholm back, reduce his role a little bit, and he'll really slot in nicely. Well, unfortunately, the Bruins haven't had the benefit of a healthy back end for most of this season once again. And so not only has Zadorov's role not been reduced, it's actually been expanded. He's played over 26 minutes in 3 of the last 5 games. That's something he's only done 11 times in his entire career, and 3 of them have been in the last 5 games. So, and most importantly, he's playing well. He's their number 1 penalty killer in terms of ice time, for a penalty kill that ranks top 10 in the league. 5-on-5, I've got some advanced stat. So I posted a feature on Zadorov on Monday morning. People can check out on weei.com, but there's some advanced stats in there about his defensive impact 5-on-5. He's been on for, among Bruins defensemen, the fewest shot attempts against, the fewest shots on goal against, the fewest expected goals against. He's second in actual goals against. Only Jonathan Aspero has him beat there, and those two have actually been paired together most of the last 6 games. So, he's really stepped up, and the Bruins have needed him to. So, yeah, just a shout out to Nikita Zadorov there.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. He's been very, very good this year, and he is an injury that you really can't afford right now. You can't afford many injuries to your top players, and that kind of goes into my opening shift, which is the battle of attrition that the Bruins have had to go through this year, pretty much from the jump. I mean, and before I get into the Bruins' woes, they're not the only team. Every team goes through the battle of attrition. Every team battles injuries. You look at the Florida Panthers. I mean, they've been without Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk all year, right? You can every team, if they haven't gone through it yet, they will at some point. So this is certainly this is nothing unique to the Bruins, but it is in the sense that how much they've been dealing with injuries to top players and since pretty much the second game of the season when Hampus Lindholm went down in the first period, and I want to say he missed the next 8 games. So that was kind of the beginning of what has been a year where the Bruins have been battling uphill with injuries, and I just want to kind of highlight what the pattern has been like for them. So Hampus Lindholm goes down for 8 games pretty much right away. Elias Lindholm then gets hurt for the next for 10 games in the middle of Hampus Lindholm being out. Middlestat also goes down for 9 games in the middle of Hampus Lindholm being out. Hampus Lindholm comes back, and then shortly after, Charlie McAvoy goes down. He's been on it ever since. Victor Arvidsson goes down. He's been on it ever since. Elias Lindholm finally comes back to the lineup for a brief amount of time. And then David Pastrnak goes out of the lineup after the game against the Islanders, as does Pavel Zacha. Briefly, he returned after the Rangers game. Middlestat comes back in on an emergency basis coming off of IR with no practice time. So we'll talk about that as well, about the validity of when players are on IR sometimes. Maybe it's more gamesmanship than anything else. But anyway, my point is, and then Joakim Haru. I mean, for as much as I've been unimpressed by his play this year, he goes down during the Rangers game and doesn't play the Detroit game, and now he's, I want to say, on IR, or at least out.
I think he was immediately put on IR, and Blumel was put on long-term IR. And Merkulov gets called up and sent down, and Callahan's up and down, and there's just so much going on.
But those are more so. That's more so player movement due to the injuries. But yes, Blumel goes down as well.
That's what has to happen to make up for all of the injuries that you're mentioning.
Now, obviously, no disrespect to the individuals off the ice, because off the ice, they're all the same. But as far as on ice production, or on ice significance, certain injuries are more damaging than others. So Matej Blumel, yeah, he's on LTIR. That sucks for him personally, but on the ice, he had not been doing much of anything. So anyway, the Bruins my point is, it's just been this game of cat and mouse all year. They haven't had their full lineup since pretty much, let's call it, the end of game 1. I mean, you had Hampus for a cup of coffee in game 2. Jordan Harris is another guy who's been out for he's been out for nearly a month and a half at this point, probably. So every time they get healthier, someone else leaves the lineup, but it's someone else of significance, right? Like Hampus Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy, Elias Lindholm, Casey Middlestat, David Pastrnak. These are guys that they're significant. It's not like Sean Kuraly is going down for a week, and I'm not trying to say that somebody getting hurt is less important than somebody else. I'm talking on ice wise. So anyway, it's the Bruins are going through it right now. We don't know, as we're recording, what David Pastrnak's status is for Detroit. I think he's probably day to day. Charlie McAvoy, good news is, was skating on his own. Victor Arvidsson looked to be skating on his own. So that doesn't tell me exactly when they're coming back, but it's good news that they're skating. But the moral of the story is the Bruins are dealing with this right now. They have been all year. It's only December 1st. So on the one hand, you say to yourself, okay, maybe this is the adversity that they're going through now, and they're getting it out of the way. But on the other hand, it's still early in the year, and there's just more opportunity for this to keep happening.
Yeah, it's almost comical when you run through it all. Like if it wasn't like so serious and like actually, affecting guys' health and like affecting the team's performance, it's like, holy shit, is that a lot of injuries you just went through? Like, it's crazy, and it's coming during the most like condensed part of their schedule. I mean, they've played more games to this point in the year than anyone, and like there's a cause and effect there, right? It's like obviously some of these injuries are just freak plays that aren't related to the schedule, but some of them, like the soft tissue stuff with Arvidsson, or like, we don't know exactly what Pasternak's is, but that looked like a soft tissue thing where he kind of pulls up. He pulls up while leaving the zone, tries to skate it off, then hunches over again, like as he goes to the bench. And it's like, yeah, that looks like it's probably a muscle thing. Like that's usually what that is. And it's like that kind of stuff can be just the accumulation of wear and tear because you're playing so many games in such a short period. So it's like, yeah, that's probably causing some of these injuries. And then it's also making the situation worse because there is just no time to take a breath and regroup. Like you mentioned Friday, it's like it's a 1:00 game coming off a holiday. None of us even know that Pasternak and Zacha are even possibilities to miss that game until Marco Sturm talks to us 80 minutes before puck drop. And, and is asked about the roster moves because before the game, there's the Merkulov call up and Blumel to LTIR, and like asked about those moves. And he's like, yeah, well, we need it because David and Pavel aren't playing today. And like, you can hear it if you listen to the interview, there's like this pause. And I'm standing there and I'm like, wait, that David and Pavel? Like, is there someone else I'm missing? Like, it's like, what the hell? Like, Pasternak and Zacha aren't playing? And then, so like that, honestly, not to like make excuses for guys, but it's like, that just about becomes a scheduled loss at that point when you hear that. Yeah. And you know that Korpisalo is getting that game, Swayman's getting a breather, which, with all due respect, like Korpisalo just is not playing at the level that Swayman is right now. Arguably, no goalie in the NHL is. So, like, you're like, all right, no Pasternak, no Zacha, still no McAvoy, and Swayman's not even your goalie. Like, we can break the game down and try to come up with takeaways and point to who needs to be better and all that. But it's like, realistically, how are you winning that game? Like, I don't care who the opponent is. That's just like that's almost impossible to overcome all of that.
Yeah, well, so I was setting up for my broadcast because I had a 3:30 broadcast, and so the game starts at 1. So I'm at Northeastern. I'm setting things up, and like Scott, you said everybody took a pause because they were shocked. Like, I'm over here trying to get ready for my own thing, but I'm trying to pay attention to the Bruins, and I'm seeing people tweet this, and I'm like, what? I'm like, so then I'm trying to tune in on my laptop and try to watch that as I get ready for everything. And I'm just like, the very first thing I thought of was like, besides like, oh shit, that's like a huge, those are 2 huge injuries. If, and the question's like, how long term, but like, you see that lineup. That was the first thing I saw actually was the lineup. And I was like, just somebody tweeted out the lines. Maybe it was even you, Scott. And I was like, well, this is a scheduled loss. Like, this is not the lineup that you want to see go out there. And I know it's the Rangers, and the Rangers hadn't been good this season, but I looked at it and I was like, well, that's not a winning lineup. So it's a good thing that Zacha genuinely only needed the game so far. And he's back in, because if you had been missing those 2 guys longer term, we're just talking about, we're just talking about injuries and why the Bruins are not able to win because of injuries. And honestly, like, I went on Black Friday that morning on the radio with Mego, and she was like, what's going on with them? Like, and I was like, injuries, like that's the main thing that's affecting their wins right now. Wins and losses have been really tied to the big injuries to Lindholm and McAvoy. And so Pasternak obviously would be in the same boat as those guys in terms of the more time he misses, the more likely you are to, go get worse results than you had been.
Now, I mentioned earlier that every team goes through injuries. It's the nature of the beast, right? But not every team goes through simultaneous injuries to your top players at the same. Like, that's where it starts to get to the point where it's like, okay, this is when injuries really can be damning to a team. Teams can make do without their top player for a game here, a couple games. that should be the case. But the other thing about that game too was it was already a hard enough game circumstantially, right? Matthew and Brady Tkachuk have a new players podcast, which I think is going to be very, very good for the game of hockey, growing the game. They talked about how the day after Thanksgiving is like the worst game that players look forward to because you have what they referred to as turkey legs. Now, I think that could also be called maybe wine legs, Manhattan legs, old fashioned legs, whatever you want to call
we're
them.
learning what Brian does on Thanksgiving, I think.
Actually, no, I'm actually not a drinker, but I do know that people obviously, they as they should, they have a great time on Thanksgiving. But that's a difficult game anyway to show up for, let alone being down your top defenseman, your top forward, one of your other top 3 forwards. And with that said, I hated their first period. I don't care who's in the lineup, who's not. It was an unacceptable level of flatness and sloppiness, and that was really disappointing to see. I get the circumstances, I get the injuries, but New York's got the same circumstances as far as the day after Thanksgiving matinee, and I just didn't like the tempo. They were completely disjointed. They were much more competitive in the following 40 minutes of play, but you dig yourself a 4-0 hole. You're just really not going to get out of that 99% of the time. And they did make it close. They made it interesting, 4-2 with 14 minutes to go in the third, but it just was too little too late. It's the old fashioned too little too late situation. So that was my read. And the other thing too, again, with the penalty issues, this team, guys, I went back and I looked at their box scores the last 6 or 7 games. Don't do it, Scott. With the old, the kids doing the thing. And their opponents are getting double the power play opportunities the Bruins are on a gamely basis. I would be willing to bet that how many games have they played? 27 this year. They've probably had maybe 3 to 5 where they've had more power plays than the other team. They have to stay out of the box. Say what you will about a specific call, and that call's BS, or this player dived. At a certain point, when you're getting that many more penalties a game than other teams, I don't care how good the PK is, and it's amazing that the PK is 9th in the league. It's why it hasn't cost them too much to this point. They gotta stay out of the box. What do they need to do to stay out of the goddamn box? Seriously.
Yeah, and it's like becoming this kind of like self-fulfilling cycle where, Marcus Sturm's asked about it, and he, because they're, like you said, they're also not drawing a lot of penalties, and he says like, well, we're spending too much time in our own zone, and you're not going to draw penalties when you're in your own zone defending. And it's like, well, you're also going to spend more time in your own zone when you take a lot of penalties because it throws you out of rhythm, and like you end up in these periods where if you kill 2 or 3 penalties in a period, you're kind of just like trying to survive and get to the intermission. And so now you're spending more time in your own zone. So you're taking more penalties. Then you take more penalties. You spend more time in the kill. Now you spend more time in your own zone. And it's like, I also think there's now like a reputation here where I feel like refs consciously or subconsciously are like, oh yeah, Bruins, that's the most penalized team in the league. And so you're probably looking for it more. You're probably noticing it more. Like I think there are things that, like you said, like there's certain calls we can nitpick. I think the Bruins have been the victim I would say in the last week or two of refs falling for some pretty blatant dives, which is just like, it's really gross. Like, I'm like, are you guys serious? Like, there's been some that just in real time, it's obvious like how easy a guy goes down and the Bruins are going to the box, but it's like, okay, that's maybe 3 of these 18, 20, 25 penalties that we're talking about. Like that doesn't explain all of them. I also think the Bruins have not gotten some pretty obvious calls, but again, you can do that with every team. Like I'm sure every team you can go through, and if you pick a 5-game sample, you're going to be like, oh, there's 2 calls they should have got but didn't. There's 2 calls they got penalties on that weren't actually penalties. Like that, you're right. Like at a certain point, the numbers are just so overwhelming that it's like you can't just blame the refs. It's a lot of stick penalties for the Bruins, and that I heard. I don't know if it was Brit. I forget where I heard it. It might have been Morning Brew. It might have been Razor and Jaffe on EI Saturday morning. But someone was making the point that like the Bruins seem to get a lot of these, call it like third or fourth efforts, but effort with the stick, where it's like they're getting in, all right, stick lift, that's fine. Maybe a little bit of a jersey tug, might let that go. But like then they're keep going at it with the stick, and then it's like, oh, now you slash the guy in the hands, and you're gonna get a call. And it's like the refs might give you one or two of those little pokes with the stick, but like if you're not getting alongside the guy and playing the body, and you're the entire way you're defending is reaching with the stick, you're gonna commit a penalty at some point, or the ref's gonna think you committed a penalty. So that's been a big one for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you're a step behind, right? Like you have to try to, do a little bit of something extra to slow somebody down to get back in position. And then if that doesn't work, yeah, a lot of times refs do see that. So I can't stop thinking about something Brian said like maybe 10 minutes ago now. So I got two things. First of all, I do want to talk about Morgan Geekie because this stemmed off something Brian said about the Rangers game, and there being some pushback, and Morgan Geekie has been the guy who, as soon as things start going bad, like, oh, he's scoring, and not only is he scoring, he's scoring like twice. So he's been there. He's got 8 goals in his last 6 games. Few of those are multi-goal games. I mean, he's doing it by himself at times. And there was chances for him to have a hat trick in a few of those games. And there was chances for him to have more assists in a few of those games because he's playing so well. And he was going to be my opening shift because as of the end of the last game against Detroit, he had 20 goals. He was tied for, I don't know if he still is, but he was tied for the lead with Nathan MacKinnon in the league in goals. And that's
they're both at 20.
So so that stayed the same then. And he's just, somebody asked him, and he was very humble about it. He's like, I'm not supposed to be in this conversation.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize it was you. How did I not recognize that voice of yours? But, but anyway, he says, I'm not supposed to be in this conversation, but he is, and he has been, right? Like, this is not the first time we're talking about this. And I feel like it's almost become more pronounced because now he's not just scoring 1 goal a game. He's scoring 2 goals a game 3 times in the last 8 games or whatever it was. So and also, I guess the fact that you are able to keep pace with someone like MacKinnon for as long as he has and not let up on it, it's impressive. And I do think I'm sitting around watching going, no, like, I've convinced myself he should be on the Canadian national team at this point. I know that like, I know people are going to be like, Bridget, you're crazy. Well, I don't know. I think that's going to be my stance because I haven't seen anything that has made me think that Morgan Geekie is anything besides one of the best players right now. And maybe he's just peaking at the right time, or I guess technically maybe he's peaking at the wrong time and he should have peaked a little sooner in order to make the team. But he's peaking right when you would want someone to be peaking to be on your roster for, to try to get gold. So I don't know. My take is that I've only convinced myself more that he belongs on that team, even if it's, the last guy to make the team. He deserves it, and he's playing well enough to get it. And my other thought off what Brian said to derail us for about 60 seconds is that, Brian, did you stop drinking the Manhattans before or after the time that you walked into that pool?
Definitely after. You saw that picture?
Oh, yes, I do. It is. Every time you text, that is the picture that comes up. It's Brian. It looks like he got into a fight, but actually he just walked into a pole, and his face is, he's all bloodied up.
He looked
like Aaron Rodgers during that Steelers-Bills game yesterday.
You should have seen the other guy. The dent I put in that pole. It was worse off than I was, trust me.
But anyway,
I have a drink here and there, but it's once in a blue moon. I don't do what I used to. I ain't as good as I once was, as the kids say.
Yeah.
As Toby Keith says.
Bringing this back to Morgan Geekie, he's on pace for 60 goals. Like that, they're 27 games in, just about exactly a third of the way through the season, and he's got 20. It's crazy, and I still don't think he's going to be on the Canadian Olympic team. It's too loaded of a roster. Like I was listening to 32 Thoughts Monday morning, and Elliot Friedman was going through, like he gave like a list of 10 guys and was like, these guys are battling for 2 spots. Basically, that's how he sees it. And it's like he had Celebrini, Bedard, Mark Scheifele, Nick Suzuki, I forget who else, but Tom Wilson, like, and didn't even mention Geek. So Kyle Buskakis brought up Geekie like afterwards because he wasn't even on Elliot's initial list. And Elliot Friedman was like, yeah, sure, like throw him in there. I don't really think he's gonna get picked, but throw him on the long list. So yeah, look, Olympics or not, it's a remarkable run that Geekie's putting together, and now doing it 3 goals in 2 games without Pasternak, which is another thing. He talked about last week. He even said, like, people still think I'm a pasta merchant. Basically, like all my scoring is just because of Pasternak, and it's evolved beyond that now. Like it doesn't really seem to matter who he's playing with.
I think it's fair.
He's actually playing really well with Alex Steeves. I feel like those 2 guys have played well together.
Well, hold the Steve's banter for just a second because I want to get to him as well. But I do think at one point, like it's especially as Geekie was starting to come into his zone before he really did come into his zone, like that. Obviously, the Pasternak being alongside him was but I think it's also fair to say that as he has scored more at this level, he's gained more confidence and he has more of an identity by himself. And I think that's probably a fair way to describe it right now. As far as the Olympic stuff, I would say his performance this year and over the last calendar year, it's warranted opinions like Bridget's, where if you want to say he should be on the Olympic team, okay, like whether somebody agrees with that or not, when it comes down to building a roster, I definitely think that his play has been deserving to be in the conversation. I'll leave it at that. And I also will say we did bold predictions for the Bruins before the season, and this was not one of them. I'm kicking myself and all of us for not thinking of this because it would have been very bold. So I'll ask it now because we're still only 27 games into the year. There's a long way to go. Bold prediction: David Pasternak does not end the season as Boston's leading goal scorer. Yes or no? Another way to put it: Morgan Geekie ends the year as Boston's leading goal scorer. Yes or no?
I would have to say yes. I mean, he's almost double Pasternak right now. He's got 20. Pasternak's got 11. Now, I think both are gonna. I think Pasternak's gonna pick up his scoring pace at some point, and I still think Geekie will slow down a little bit. Like he's shooting 28.6%, highest in the NHL. He has a great shot. I wouldn't be surprised if he might lead the NHL in shooting percentage, certainly among guys who take like X amount of shots, but it's probably not going to be 28.6%. It'll be somewhere under 25.
Well, I mean, like 15% is good. Like that's a
yeah.
good
I mean, like the top scores are around 20. Like
Yeah,
but
the
I'm just saying,
elite goal scorers.
I'll also say that's been the
28 is
narrative on him for a year now, is like his shooting percentage has to drop. And I agree with it, but it is funny. It's like that's always the narrative with Geekie, is like, yeah, he's doing this, but it's gonna drop. It's gonna drop. And it's like he just keeps doing it. And he's got to do it for longer, I think, for us to stop saying that or projecting that in a that it will drop in a significant way.
If he keeps doing that, then he's on a $5.5 million contract. Like, he would then most certainly be the most underpaid person in the league. Like, he's producing and scoring at the rate of like McKinnon and McDavid and whatever, and he's on a $5.5 million a year contract, locked up for a long time on that contract. So, I mean, if he keeps doing it, that's the best signing Don Sweeney's ever made. Like, that's a great contract.
I'd still put my money on Pasternak, just because we've seen it for a decade plus, right? And we also saw last year. I mean, don't forget, this time last year, honestly, kind of to the day, like December 1st, we were doing point projections, and Pasternak was on pace for like 70 points or 67 points or 68 points or something like that. And he just couldn't stop scoring from, call it early mid-December to the end of the year, to the point where he, I think, paced the NHL maybe alongside Leon Draisaitl or one other player for like that scoring pace. So, yes, Geekie has a bit of a cushion right now in the goal category, and Pasternak is currently out of the lineup. We also know that David can rattle off 2 hat tricks in 7 games, and quickly, or whatever. So it's not a comfortable person to be in front of if you're talking about a goal scoring race, if you're Geekie. But again, the fact that we're having these conversations is nothing short of of massive praise for Geekie and how he's played for really a year now.
They should have an internal bet, and then if they make it a competition, maybe they just go off even more. But
Pasternak would bet on Geekie. The way he talks about Geekie, like.
And Geekie would probably bet on Pasternak.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up bold predictions, because it reminds me that, like, I think my bold predictor has just been tuned slightly off. Like,
it's like a season difference.
Yeah, I picked Pasternak to win the Rocket Richard. I really should have picked Geekie, and I was like a year off on my Swayman Vezina one. Like, didn't happen last year, but this year, like, Swayman may very well be the Vezina favorite right now.
As far as getting bold predictions right in the year you predict them, how are you guys feeling about my bold prediction at this point? It's early. It's possible.
Was yours about Sturm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack Adams nod for Sturm in his first year.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely possible. You see those go to new, like, not new coaches necessarily. Like, he is new as you could get to the NHL, I guess, as a head coach, because this is his first season. But you a lot of times see it go to a coach who takes over a team that did not do well the year before, and then all of a sudden, they're a playoff team, or they've made a significant step. So I do still think that his ability or likelihood of winning that award ties to one thing more than anything else, which is
make
the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, right now, Muse is the guy, but Sturm's in the conversation.
I was also going to say, or it goes to a team that sets records, and right now the Avalanche are on pace to break the Bruins point record from a couple years ago. So
they're insane.
If that happens, then it probably honestly just goes to Jared Bednar by default.
I mean, the Bruins are the only regulation loss right now to the Avalanche. And I will just say that game, especially in the first period, because I remember talking about it, Colorado looked like the Globetrotters up until Victor Arvidsson got his first of the year in a pretty, cheeky, garbage goal, and then that kind of turned the Bruins game around for the rest of the regulation. But even in Colorado's lone regulation loss, they still looked fucking incredible, like at different times in the game.
And like, they're just kicking the shit out of people too. Like, these aren't even close games a lot of times. Like, they're on pace. So I mentioned they're on pace to break the Bruins point record, I think by like a few points. But I also looked at goal differential, and they're on pace for goal differential that's like almost 40 goals better than that 22-23 Bruins team. Like, just like Saturday night, they beat Montreal 7-2. They did have a shootout loss right before that, but the 3 games prior to that were all shutouts. They had 3 straight shutouts.
Wow.
It's like there's a 6-0 in there, and then you go, it's like 6-3, 4-1, 6-3, 9-1 in Edmonton a few weeks back. Like, they're killing teams.
Now, if we were an Avalanche podcast, right? If we were the Rocky Mountain podcast here, we would be talking about, okay, but are you battle tested enough when it comes down to the playoffs? Have you faced enough adversity? That's what everybody was saying about the Bruins in 22-23. Now, this Colorado group, they have a Stanley Cup to their name a couple of years ago. So, but it is true. Like, I do think I can't help but feel this way. I do think it's important for a team to go through different levels of adversity throughout the course of a season to see how that specific group responds to X, Y, and Z. And if you steamroll your way through the regular season and you break records, that's amazing. Put it in the history books. Just, you're going to have to prove that, not facing adversity doesn't make an impact. Like so that's, but I'm sure they'll face adversity at some point. Somebody will get hurt or they'll go through a tough stretch. But that's the one thing I would throw caution to the wind if that was happening to a team we were covering is, okay, but what happens when the going gets tough? How do you respond if things don't go your way?
Well, and I say just look at the results of what happened at the end of that season to the Bruins to know, like, if you're Colorado and you're like, obviously we're still super early in this, but like, if you're still looking like you're going to beat this, set this record in March and you're rolling through, it's like, well, is there any cautionary lessons we can learn from what happened to that Bruins team just a few seasons ago that set the record at the time? And you can't let your guard down in the playoffs, being the 1 seed versus the 8 seed. And
I mean, like you can't have your top 2 centers get injured the last week of the regular season.
No, I know. And your goaltending situation.
Well, also, if Pittsburgh beats Chicago, which was like the last place team in the league at that point, the Bruins drop Pittsburgh in the first round and probably win in 4 or 5.
Yeah, they probably sweep Pittsburgh.
It was a perfect storm against Boston. You had all these trade deadline acquisitions that hadn't yet played with the whole team because you had certain guys on IR. And so the whole team wasn't even healthy until, the whole team wasn't even ready to play together until the playoffs. And then at that point, Bergeron's down, Krejci. It was a whole thing. We've talked about it before. And I will also say the Bruins did start that year without McAvoy and Marchand. DeBrusk went down for a significant portion. So they did have different injury adversity.
I think we've talked about this maybe too many times. This is like it's the one that got away, right?
I was gonna say, now that we've made our whole audience cry, let me bring this back to something happier, which is the play of Jeremy Swayman. So please. I did touch on it here. Here was the Swayman thought I had from earlier because, we brought up the Canadian Olympic team. After Saturday's game, Swayman was asked something about the Olympics and how does that kind of factor into your mindset, your approach to this season? And he's like, yeah, like it's a part of it. Like, I'm not going to hide from that. He said, it's a lifelong dream to be an Olympian. And said like, he knows if I do my job with the Bruins, I'm going to put myself in a good spot to be in that team. Here's my thought. Could Jeremy Swayman be the starter for Team USA? Because I think he's playing better than any other. First of all, he's playing better than any goalie in the league. But you look at the U.S. goaltending options, and it seems like it's probably going to be the same 3 goalies as 4 Nations: Swayman, Jake Ottinger, Connor Hellebuck. I think I saw. I think it was Anthony DeMarco for Daily Faceoff had like a U.S. projection last week, and like with some sourced info, like talking to team sources in USA Hockey. So it was actually more like, here's what I think is going to happen than here's what I think should happen. And he said it sounds like it's basically a foregone conclusion that it'll be the same 3 goalies. It seems like, Spencer Knight in Chicago's off to a good start, but I don't think they're really going to consider him. Thatcher Demko has looked good early this season, but then got hurt again. It's just, it's so many injury issues. So don't think he's going to be there. So like Connor Hellebuck's banged up right now. He's been out for a couple weeks. He's going to be back well before the Olympics, but also has a lot of big game questions around him, whether that's Stanley Cup playoffs or Four Nations last year, where I thought he was fine, but like had some shaky moments. Jake Ottinger, I would say, is having a good, not great season so far. Swayman has certainly been better. There were also questions about Ottinger last postseason, right? He gets pulled, and that ends up being a whole big part of the Pete DeBoer getting fired. But I'm just like, I don't know. Swayman's playing better than any of them right now. And he was their goalie in the spring when they won gold at the World Championships, which I know is a different level of tournament. And that's not the Olympics. It's not Four Nations, but it's also not insignificant. Like, if you're looking for, like, hey, someone who's done it in this uniform for us, like, that helps.
Yeah. I think it's Hellebuck's net to lose.
Yeah.
Especially when he comes back. But
number one. As long as he's healthy, he's the number one. But Swayman didn't even get time in Four Nations. Like, Swayman was the number 3. Like, he was the guy that you put in if one of the other two got hurt. So I mean, I think he's moved up that depth chart.
I agree.
I think he's not just the guy that's like the extra in case of emergency goalie. I think he. And then depending on, say, there's some stinkers in there for Hellebuyck or Ottinger or whatever, then you reevaluate who your number one goalie is, I guess. But I do think Hellebuck's going to start out as the automatic to that guy. But hey, 2 Hockey East goalies, fighting for it, and we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, all 3.
Yeah, Hockey East puts out some of the best goalies, not to go on my propaganda, but they really do have some of the best goalies. I feel like I've watched so many good goaltenders come out of there. And like Jacob Fowler, we'll see what happens with him. He's with Montreal's organization, but yeah, he could be a guy in the future that, you see. But anyhow, wow, we're talking more Olympics than I thought we would today, but I love the Olympic topic. So
yeah, I mean, I'll bring it back to the Bruins. I'll just say, Bridget, I agree with you. I think Swayman, at the very least, right now, has worked his way up to the number 2 American goalie for the Olympics. If Connor Hellebuyck comes back from injury and struggles, doesn't have a great stretch of play prior to February, then and Swayman continues his play, I think it's way more of a toss up. And certainly, if the games begin and Hellebuyck isn't what he's supposed to be, then yeah, there's a job to be won even in the Olympic Games. But to bring it back to the Bruins.
Well, just quickly before you do, I will say, I think they should play 2 goalies in the group stage.
Sure.
Like that's a benefit you didn't have in Four Nations. I would not want Hellebuyck playing every single minute of the tournament, and then like, oh, maybe he struggles in the semifinals, and now it's like, well, you're not going to go to someone in the gold medal game who hasn't played at all. So I would at least get a second goalie some ice time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Back to Boston. Bridget, you mentioned his name earlier, Alex Steeves. I want to talk about him for a second. I think he's been really good. You talk about players who didn't start the year in Boston who are taking advantage of their opportunity. I've spoken highly of Jonathan Aspero, who hasn't gone without some hiccups and some learning moments, but for the most part, he's been really solid, brings the effort, like the dynamic he brings to the back end. He's physical. He skates well. He's, a thick body, like he's physical. I just love the way he competes. He's a gamer. Up front, Alex Steeves has been a gamer, and you can tell he's a player that is not wanting to relinquish his NHL opportunity right now. And he's a smart player. He's got a great shot. He presses. He makes things hard for the opposition. And more importantly, I guess right now, is he's showing he can play alongside Boston's better forwards. So he obviously has a big game against the Islanders. Now, I want to say he has like 4 points, I want to say, maybe like 11 games this year. But he's had some plays that have been leading to goals where he didn't necessarily get a point on. So I've liked his play a lot. And there's also somebody that we'll get to in a minute that's down in Providence that a lot of the fan base is clamoring for. But first, let's just stick to Alex Steeves.
Yeah, I mean, it's that first goal Saturday. It's his forecheck that forces the turnover. he doesn't get a point because he never touched the puck, but he forces a bad pass up the boards. Elias Lindholm throws it on net. Geekie tips it in. Like, for as far as I'm concerned, like, that's almost deserving of a point. That goal doesn't happen without Steeves. So, yeah, it's fascinating because I think last week on here we talked about him and I said, like, I like a lot of things he's doing. I think he's a better fit on the fourth line than in a top six role. But then he gets another chance in the top six over this weekend with all the injuries, and I would say takes advantage of it. Like, looked better than he had in other games playing that high in the lineup. And I think that's a product of him just getting more comfortable and, like you said, taking advantage of it. And I know, to tie this into like other younger players getting opportunities, like, okay, Georgii Merkulov gets called up for that Friday game in an emergency situation. Technically is on the second line, but only plays like 11 minutes. People want to see Fabian Lysell or Patra. And it's like I get wanting to see those guys, but also, like, can you really tell me with a straight face you think they'd be better in that spot than Alex Steeves right now? Because that's what you're talking about. Like, if you're talking about putting one of those guys in, it's in that top six role, and Steeves goes down to the fourth line, which I think is where he ultimately ends up when everyone's healthy. But right now, it's like, well, I just watched Steeves play much better than Merkulov. And I'm not even trying to shit on Merkulov because it's a tough situation, right? Like, he gets the Province Bruins are in Toronto. He gets the call on Thursday. He flies back on Thanksgiving, has no practice time, no morning skate. Like, it was a tough situation. It would have been pretty impressive if he had like a really good game. But like, he didn't. He was kind of quiet. Steeves did have a good weekend. So I don't know. Give me Steeves right now. Do you want to argue that Fabian Lysell would be better if he got called up? I kind of have a hard time seeing it, right? Like, I'm watching Steeves actually do it right now. So why would I feel the need to put someone else in that spot who I haven't seen do it and don't know if they would do it?
He's a dog. Steeves is a dog in the best way possible. The way he just hunts pucks and finishes checks, and he plays the game the right way. I'll put it that way.
We have this conversation, I believe.
Bridget, you're a little bit low.
You're having some mic issues.
Again, sometimes.
There you go.
All right, we're good. Sometimes this happens if I don't talk for a while. It, like, for some reason, like, this thinks I don't want to talk. But
if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, I guess so. But we talked about this because, once again, it feels like it's been forever since we recorded because so much has happened. But before, like, the most recent recording before this, I think we were talking about, do they send Steeves down because now he has to go through waivers to go get sent down because he's played 11 games now. And so, right, Scott, am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, he's not, obviously now it's not going anywhere. Like,
and he would get picked up. I think he'd get picked up.
So he's here now, right? That's the decision. And he would, I mean, you lost Johnny Beecher to waivers, and Beecher wasn't doing nearly as much as what Steeves is doing. So Calgary would just be like, thank you. Like, are they still in last, actually? Like, I just feel like they just
Calgary just has like a whole new bottom six thanks to
they just like take the Bruins what they discarded. But no, like, I think he's here to stay. I think that's what all of that signifies. Like, he got past the 10 games, he's going to be on the roster, and he's been able to do something that the other guys from Providence haven't in terms of the forwards, is actually be in the top six and not have us going, maybe they really should have called up Patra, because I really don't feel that way right now. I had sent a text to you guys because the NHL posted a clip of Fabian Lysell having a really nice goal. He takes it end to end, and I sent it in the chat, and I said, guys, I feel like this is actually a bad thing because now he's going to think he gets to the NHL and he's just going to be able to go through, take everyone one-on-one, go right to the net and just score like that. And it was one of the, like, it was a beautiful goal, but it took everything going right. And like guys bought in on the deeks and he tricked people, but that's not happening in the NHL. And I almost feel like maybe that was, forming a bad habit because it's like, see, it worked, but I don't think it's gonna work in the pro, like in the NHL. So, but yes. So what you mentioned, Brian, I think you said some fans are clamoring for him to be up with as many injuries as they have. With as many injuries as they have, I get it. Like, because we're not talking about is it Steeves or Lysell? Like, it may have to be both. Just because of the situation. Like it was Merkulov they didn't keep him. He already got sent back down. And obviously practices in 40 minutes. And maybe this is all obsolete because maybe he's there. But yeah, they could need to use both.
So, well, with Mittelstadt and Zacha in the lineup, do they? It's only Pasternak right now up front. Right? Am I missing something?
No, right. I'm saying
right now it's right now I think they're probably fairly comfortable with the guys they have in their top six. Where you're right, it's like Geekie, Zacha, Elias Lindholm, Mittelstadt, Husnudinov still there, and now with Steeves coming off the weekend he had, if Pasternak's not back yet, like you're probably just keeping Steeves there.
Who's the extra forward right now? Is it VL and Tufte?
Yeah.
I more mean if Mittelstadt or Zacha turn out to not be like fully healthy.
In that situation, Bridget, yes, I think Lysell should be the next guy from Providence called up for a significant like top six type of role if that's what the void is. But as far as like calling him up to, as it currently stands, like I'd rather Tufte be that extra forward because you want somebody getting reps in Providence. But if somebody goes down next, Blumel's hurt, right? So he's on a Providence call-up option. We see that Merkulov just isn't really whatever. I mean, I think Lysell has, I think he has as good of a claim as anybody down in Providence if somebody in the top six goes down next. But I will just say quickly, Scott, before you go, Bridget, what you said is exactly what I felt when I watched that clip, because obviously it went viral and everybody's like, he needs to be up, and look at this goal. My first thought when I saw that clip was, that was a pretty play. My very next thought was, that is not going to happen at the next level. And you just said that a few minutes ago, Bridget. And if that goal happens, and now it enables Lysell to try to do that stuff more often, because I can tell you right now in the practices that I've seen, in the games I've watched him play in, he tries to go between guys' legs 7 out of 10 times. He has the puck crossing the center ice. And it's even the best players at the NHL level, the most skilled players, they don't try to do that stuff all the time. They do it once in a while when they see the opportunity. So, but I have also seen online from people that are covering Providence that Lysell's game, his two-way game, has been better. So this is why I say if I think he should be the next call-up, but I would, again, throw a caution to the wind to him to not think he's going to get away with goals like that all the time or ever at the NHL level.
I will say I thought it was a little odd that Merkulov was the call-up and not Lysell, just given the spot in the lineup they're filling. Like, they needed a right wing, and Merkulov has been playing wing full-time in Providence this year, but left wing, his strong side. I don't think he had ever played right wing. So to like call him up and throw him on right wing was a little weird when you have a natural right wing in Fabian Lysell, who, as far as I can tell, doesn't seem like there's a huge difference between them right now. I'm sure part of their explanation would be maybe they like Merkulov's details better at this moment and think he's playing a little bit more of a more complete game, if I had to guess. But I just thought that was odd. It's like, so the first time you're going to play Georgii Merkulov on right wing is in an NHL game with no practice or morning skate. Like I did think that was a bit odd.
Lysell also just came back to the lineup, I think, too.
True.
I think he's been out for a little bit, so maybe there's some of that at play where they want him to get healthier, get more up to speed before going up to the Bruins. So I think the message to Lysell right now, if you're Ryan Mougenel and Don Sweeney, is more so Don Sweeney, I guess, how often they talk, is, hey, keep doing what you're doing for a little bit longer, and your opportunity is going to come. I will also say that I believe Fabian Lysell recently changed agents.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever that means behind the scenes. Just food for thought. But yeah, listen, I'll sum up Lysell like this. I thought the goal was a pretty goal. I like what he's doing down in Providence right now. As long as he recognizes that you can't get away with certain things at the NHL level and that you still have to play a strong style of hockey, like an Alex Steeves, where you're playing the right way, then I'm all for him getting an opportunity when it presents itself. So, and the way the Bruins have been getting injured this year, I'm sure it'll come at some point soon. So, any final thoughts from you guys before we sign out?
No,
you guys didn't get the fashion segment.
Bridget, your microphone again.
What?
I heard her fashion segment. She said we got to get a fashion segment out. Okay.
Yes, because the USA jerseys came out.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, we've covered them. Like, it's exactly what we thought. Obviously, yeah, they're 10 out of 10. Like, they're great. Where I thought you were gonna go with a fashion segment was the Dallas Stars 99 throwbacks that they rolled out this weekend, which I was actually like, I was never really a fan of those jerseys at the time, but the Stars have had so many just bland, like, boilerplate jerseys since, that part of me is like, you know what? Maybe the Stars should have these jerseys, like this unique design with the star design, like where it's the outline of a star built into the jersey design, because I did kind of get a little bit of nostalgia seeing those. But yeah, USA jerseys, beautiful, gorgeous.
Scott, people will say anything. I saw a comment regarding Team USA's Olympic jerseys, where the response was from somebody, they had 4 years to come up with something, and it was this. These are so bland. I will tell you this. People will look you dead in the face and tell you the sky is green. Honestly, I see comments like that. I'm like, people in this world can't help but just be contrarians about things. Like, it's like, you got to be kidding me. What are you talking about? How is that bland? You have eyes, right? You use them?
That had to have been a Canadian.
It could have been.
Well, they had a Colorado Avalanche avatar as their profile picture, so maybe. But in any event,
they're a McClar fan.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, Scott, I like the Dallas Stars jerseys. I agree with you. They've had some bland looks since, let's call it, the Reebok Edge era started, which is not the era anymore, but from that era on. I think they're very good. I also think the Chicago Blackhawks black alternates are sharp as hell. Yeah, I think that probably is it for the uniforms. Great uniform matchup recently. Quebec Nordiques versus Montreal Canadiens. That was awesome to see. And also, low-key, I'm sure we're going to get an update soon, I would imagine. The Bruins have another uniform coming out this year for their stadium series. So I don't know when they're going to drop those, but I keep forgetting about that too. But in any event, thank you for igniting that fashion segment, Bridget. I appreciate it as always. We will let Scott head off to Warrior for Bruins practice. So if you have any burning questions you want Scott to ask today in the locker room, make sure to leave him here so we can see him real quick, and he can be the players and coaches' favorite journalist in there.
Yeah, I don't really know if people are going to get through an hour and 6 minutes of this and then have time to tweet at Scott before he talks to people, but sure.
Probably not, but obviously the updates to keep an eye on is really just like who's on the ice. Pasternak first and foremost, but also like Victor Arvidsson did. So on Saturday morning, he skated before the team, but then he did also stay on the ice for what was an optional morning skate. So not a full team session. but that's one to monitor. And then Charlie McAvoy, like when does he? We've now seen him on the ice. When does he practice with the team? Is there any chance of him traveling? I have no inside info on this, but I just have like a sneaking suspicion that he's going to be back sooner than later.
I mean, anytime you see somebody skating after something that vicious, that quick, it's like, okay, maybe, and so we'll keep an eye on those things.
He was up on level 9 Saturday night too, so it's just good to see him around again.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him is putting some weight back on after. So, all right, Bridget, you all set?
Yeah.
Scott, you good?
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Thank you all very much for listening. Enjoy Bruins Red Wings, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.